It's time to get down to business on TK Business Live, brought to you by the members of the Topeka Independent Business Association. Now, let's join Tara Dimmick, owner and publisher of TK Business Magazine, as we take a look into the business world of Topeka, Kansas.
Hi, and welcome to TK Business Live. Well, first up, we're going to talk with two interns. They're my interns. They're working with E2 Communications, which is the company that owns TK Business Magazine. And we're going to visit with them a little bit about kind of that generational gap and maybe some of the misconceptions that might be out there because they're millennials, as well as what they are looking for in an internship. And then after that, I'm going to bring in Lisa Loewen, my editor-in-chief, because it's launch week for TK Business Magazine. So this is the week that we bring the magazine out. It hits stands and is online by June 1st. We're actually going to try to get it out a little bit early, but I can promise that June 1st we'll have it on stands and online at tkmagazine.com. So we'll bring her in the studio and give you some kind of a little bit of the behind the scenes that happens with the magazine and what some of those conversations are when we're interviewing for articles in the magazine. So I'm excited to have her on later on in the show. Joining me now is my two interns. They just started, I guess it's been a couple weeks now. And one is from K-State, which will, depending on how you feel about that, Tim Colling would feel very positively about that. Others might not. And and the other is from Washburn University. Yay! So we're excited about Washburn too. So both of you are wonderful. But Logan Bledsoe is from K-State. She's actually a Silver Lake graduate. And I met her, I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but when we had MVP Sports Magazine, Logan was on the MVP Sports Magazine junior board. And so that was how I got to meet Logan. And then Samantha is with is out of Washburn University, but she is with the Washburn Leadership Institute, which I am a huge fan of. And if you have not, you're wondering, where should I get an intern from? I can't tell you enough times how wonderful the interns that I have had that are coming out of the Washburn Leadership Institute. So welcome, Samantha and Logan. What are you looking for to get out of your internship? So when you go and decide, where am I going to go work for, or how am I going to dedicate all this time? Because it's a ton of hours that you have to get when you do an internship. And sometimes it's paid and sometimes it's not. And sometimes it just depends. What are you looking to get out of from that company?
I'm definitely looking to get some experience and a head start into that particular field. I also tried to look for more than just a company, maybe different personal traits that I could get from that person who is then in that leadership position, more than just what they do career-wise. And I feel that's how I learned my experience.
And for me personally, I've had my fair share of bad internships where I've just been sitting in a cubicle 8 to 5 where I don't get any experience and I do nothing. So I'm really looking for hands-on, interactive learning where the person who is overlooking me can give me the opportunity to learn and to grow and to make those mistakes that I need to learn to grow, and then trust me with giving me responsibilities on top of that so I can learn by making my own mistakes.
So that's awesome. That's great. And I think there's so many internships and so many times when we think it's a good idea as a business to have an intern, and then we really don't realize how much prep work necessarily goes into it so that we don't have the stuff together. And so then you end up sitting, and yeah, it's a really interesting balance to try to really effectively use an intern. Okay. So with that in mind, and then thinking about all these generational gaps, we hear in the news and all over the place, there's this huge divide between millennials and other generations. And how are we going to work with millennials? So how do we work with millennials? How can our generation, I'm not that old yet, but how can older generations and older individuals work well with you as millennials coming out of college?
For me, I think looking to someone who's older than me, if they could just keep an open mind. In me, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to keep trying until I get it right, but just having patience and an open mind as we do learn and grow as an individual. But then also, I'm only 20, so I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to make mistakes, so I have the energy and the passion to keep going and moving forward, but just for someone to stop me every once in a while and say, hey, this is a bad idea, you're going down the wrong path, and maybe start leading us in the right way, in the right direction, and to tell us when we are doing something wrong. That's really important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that flexibility is a big one. Knowing that everybody has different things to bring to the table is great. Experience is awesome, but maybe new ideas is also great. So I think just being able to, both of them realizing that they're both an important map.
Good. Because I can see that. I think the relationship is something that's really, it's been an interesting process for me. So through every intern I have had, that process of learning how to work together. And then even working with other peers and trying to figure out what makes the best working relationship. I think it's kind of getting over some of the generational biases that are created and then figuring that out. Okay, so I do have to ask this question because you mentioned it before we got on the air, and so I'm going to pop this out. We'll see how it goes. So you mentioned that one of the misconceptions that we have about millennials is that they're always on their phone. Now, this is not just true about millennials, but millennials are tending to have a tendency to be on their phones a lot. So what is the best way to work with that? I mean, do you need to have the access to your phone to have a good working relationship with us? Or, are we stifling you if we take that phone relationship away? How does that work?
I feel like sometimes we feel maybe a little bit constrained if we don't have our phone with us, but we definitely do exceed being on it for nonsense reasons. While there is a lot of things that we could positively use it for, maybe that would be more of a self thing that we should be able, to have our phones, but also have the ability to stay off of them when needed.
I think an interesting phenomenon that has been coming to my attention a lot lately is the fear of missing out. I think that's a big thing in millennials. If they're in an office 8 to 5, they're like, what could I be doing outside these four walls? What is everyone else doing outside these four walls? And they just want to constantly be in the know. And so I think it's important for them just to have their phone next to them, whether it's going off or not, just knowing, okay, no one's doing anything fun. I can sit here and focus.
Because they're all at work too.
Right.
Well, I think that'll be an interesting thing that most businesses and anyone who's in a leadership and has a managing position, anyone managing people is going to have to figure out how to deal with is, do I let them have their phone? Is that actually helpful or is that hindering the work to get done? So I'm always curious about that conversation. Okay, so the next question I have is, what are you looking for in your future career and community?
Well, being from Silver Lake, I really love the small town atmosphere. So I love small businesses, small, just like communities where everyone knows their name. Last summer I had an internship and it was a huge company. Huge for being Topeka, Kansas, but I didn't know everyone's name. Nobody really knew me because I was just in my little cubicle, and I just did not like that. I really look for small, just even if it's 100 people, I think that's still important to me, just where I can go somewhere and look forward to seeing people and actually hold a conversation with someone about my day.
Yeah, I think for me it would be positivity and just something that constantly keeps moving forward in a matter that benefits everybody as a whole, and the community along with it.
That's great. So what can we do to keep you in Topeka?
Make it warm here all year long.
That was make it warm here all day long, just in case you missed that. I'm not sure that we can pull that off, but I can excite you with tornadoes.
Close second.
That was the second thing you wanted, right?
Definitely. I think there are a lot of benefits of being around Topeka, and I just feel like we don't know them all. Maybe being more into the fact that there are a lot of different things to do around here, which the misconception is that there's nothing here in Topeka, and that there are a lot of great companies and nonprofits trying to do, better the community.
Absolutely. I think for being from Silver Lake, and I had almost everything I needed in my own town, but I still had to travel to Topeka every once in a while. But when I think of Topeka, I think of Wanamaker and Fair Lawn. I don't really go much farther than that. I have never had the interest to dig a little deeper, and I think just kind of getting the word out of what's really out there beyond the main streets.
All right, well, it sounds like I got some work to do. I'm going to have to tell these guys about all the cool things that are happening in Topeka because obviously they're missing out on the Wheelbarrow. I just went to that this last week. Holy cow, that place was amazing. The best sandwich I have had in a long time. So, girls, we're going to have to do some field trips. All right. Thank you, Samantha and Logan, for coming on the show and talking about internships.
Thank you, Tara.
Yeah, anytime.
My name is Ken Daniel, and the name of my company is Midway Wholesale.
What is TIBA? TIBA is advice and support. TIBA is information and education. TIBA is a voice for small business.
It's amazing the changes that we've gotten made in state law to the point where we had a list at one time and it's just about finished.
The Topeka Independent Business Association is strong because of its members. Become a member today by visiting topekatiba.org.
So this is the week. This is the week that we launched TK Business Magazine's Summer Edition. And this is always one of my favorite weeks because I love to do all this work and then we finally get to showcase all these different experts and these great stories of these businesses and these business owners. And so it's kind of that day of fruition where we get to bring it all out. But the plan is to actually have it go out June 1st, but it might be out early. I should tease that a little bit with that. As long as maybe we have some decent weather, we'll actually release the magazine on Memorial Day. We'll be bringing it by. So cross my fingers, but otherwise you'll see it June 1st on stands and online. So you can go to tkmagazine.com and check it out. So because of that, I wanted to bring my editor-in-chief, Lisa Loewen. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
Into the studio to talk a little bit about what to expect and maybe some of the inside scoop that might not be in the magazine that kind of comes with writing the articles and doing the interviews with all these great business professionals in our community. So what you can look for in TK is some really good expert pieces. We have succession planning. And if you're a business or a child of a business owner or maybe a top level individual within a small business, you should read this article about succession planning. It's one of those articles where it's an expert piece and sometimes you pass through those. But if you have any of those situations where maybe your father or your mother owns a business and you're wondering, how are we going to pass this on? What are they planning? Or maybe if you are the business owner, you really need to think about how succession planning needs to be a part of your business plan. And then there's a piece from Washburn University about how to have more effective meetings and to tame the ineffective meetings? Is that what it's called? So looking at your agendas and making a better meeting strategy. And then we've got experts with Christina Dietrich over at Creative Business Solutions, Nick Nurick with Legacy Financial Solutions, and Beta over at Topeka Landscape is going to talk a little bit about how important that marketing of your business is, just with making sure you have a strong landscape. And then Sue over at Midland Care is going to talk about grief and grief in the workplace, which is kind of a unique article for us to have in TK, but I thought it was really relevant. You know, how many times is something going on at home that really plays a part into your employees or maybe a coworker's work life and how they are acting at work? So the great expert pieces. You're going to love them. But we'll talk about some of the articles that are in this issue. So Lisa was the writer for the Downtown Topeka article. And I got some people looking in the window that are distracting me here. But we've got Downtown Topeka, years in the making. And Lisa, tell me a little bit about this article. And this is a big piece. We're not just talking, this is only one component of this big piece that we're doing on downtown.
Yeah, we're looking at doing, for those of you who are hopefully regular readers, we're looking at doing a whole series of articles that's going to showcase what's happening downtown. Because if you have been involved with the process, you kind of are informed. If you haven't been involved with the process, things are starting to happen. You're starting to be able to see progress, and it's kind of exciting. So the purpose of this first article was to go back and kind of talk about the history, how this all started. And we can see progress happening. You know, the streets changed. We've got these parks going up and sculptures are going in and all kinds of, we've got the arches going over the street. Lots of cosmetic things have happened. And what people often either have forgotten or didn't know was this actually started about 10 years ago. It's taken us this long to get all of the pieces in place and actually make progress on this project.
Yeah, it's a huge, so I do a lot of work with the Kansas Leadership Center, and I've gotten to go to a lot of their trainings. And they talk a lot, for those of you who have ever participated in something with Kansas Leadership Center, they talk a lot about adaptive versus technical challenges. And this is the poster child for an adaptive challenge. This wasn't just like, hey, we need to get this in place and this in place and this in place, and then we can move forward. It was, we have to change minds of people. We have to move forward even when people might not agree with us. We've got to get right people at the table. We've got to energize people. We've got to manage ourselves so that we don't disengage, because this is a 10-year process. This is huge adaptive challenge right here.
Well, and it's not only that. You know, when they started this process, it all kind of came out of a need to grow Topeka. How do we keep people here? How do we bring young people here? How do we bring young businesses here? And a lot of that, when they did discussions of that, culminated in this idea we have to have a vibrant downtown. Well, people grasped onto that. People like Scott Gales and Mike Morse and Vince Fry and Neil Dobler and Heartland Visioning played a big role. There was just a ton of people that agreed with this. But the fact they all agreed with this didn't mean anything actually moved forward. It was this concentrated effort to not only say, okay, what does a vitalized downtown look like? Because people can't agree on that.
Right. And even in the issue, you show that. We have pictures of the what almost became or the ideas, the what ifs. And one of those was like clock towers. And whether your streets were 2 lanes or 4 lanes or 3 lanes or just all the different ideas.
Or whether it was even a straight road versus a winding curved road. There was a lot of different ideas that were floated out there. And what they found in the process was they built a lot of excitement with this idea. But excitement is not necessarily engagement, and it's not necessarily support. So you can be excited about something, but if you're not ready to put your money where your mouth is, then it can't move forward. So what had to happen with a lot of that, and it's just fascinating going through and talking to all these key players that played a role in this, was they had to start getting buy-in. Not only from the business people who thought this was a great idea, they had to get buy-in from city council people. They had to get buy-in if we're going to do this, we've got to upgrade 100-year-old infrastructure. We've got to tear up the street. We've got to replace water mains. We have to replace utility lines. We have to give them fiber so that they can have connectivity down there. And then it was, okay, well, we can pay for infrastructure, but tax dollars is not going to pay for cosmetic improvements above the street. How are we going to pay for that? So then it's going back to the drawing table and saying, okay, now we have to bring private business in. We've got to get them to commit dollars to actually improving what it looks like above the street. And so you had key players that had to try to juggle all of this and coordinate these efforts and bring people together and sit down and convince people that this was a project that was worth investing in. And it took hours and hours and hours of people's time, and it took almost a decade to really pull it together.
Yeah, it's amazing how they had to bring the right people to the table at the right time. And then you've got people like the mayor, the former mayor, Mayor Button. And, I don't know that everyone would have even known that he was a major player in the forward progress. And that kind of put I think he drew the line in the sand and said, this has to happen. And it's going to happen before I retire.
Yeah. The first time that they brought this up before the council was when they were asking that the city not only do infrastructure, but also pay for improvements above the street. And it failed because they were like, we can't ask taxpayers to fund this. And after that, Bill Bunton called some of the key players and basically said, I want to see this happen before I leave office. What is it going to take? And the response to that was, we've got to get private dollars to do a coordinated effort between public and private to show our commitment to downtown.
Well, it's a beautiful article, and my favorite part about it is really it's a chance for us to look back before we look forward, because there's going to be a whole lot of things that we see happen over the next several months and through 2017, where downtown has new businesses that are getting ready to be announced. They have new restaurants that are getting ready to be announced. They've got a ton of activities that are going to happen. We've got Kansas coming into the Avenue. Kansas coming to Kansas Avenue. Is that July 2nd? Which is so cool. The pocket parks will be built and everything should be installed kind of by the end of the summer. And so you've got all of these things going on. And then you've got these key players that are saying, I think they saw it before they saw it. I mean, when we talk about Klossman and Eaton, they saw it before.
Yeah. When the city finally came on board and said, okay, we can move this forward, I think you take a successful business person can see opportunity before it actually is obvious. And so Jim Klossman and Butch Eaton, they saw that the city was on board and they said to themselves, this is a great investment opportunity. Things are going to happen downtown, and it may not happen overnight and it may not happen for 5 years, but we're going to be part of that. They bought 16 buildings down on Kansas Avenue. 16 buildings that they want to bring in retail space, office space, residential space, entertainment space. Phenomenal things. And then you have investors like Cody Foster, who's going to build a multi-million-dollar hotel down there. And along with that hotel, he's going to bring event space. He's going to bring multiple restaurants, maybe a martini bar. Some of those kinds of things are hinted at. There's rumors of all kinds of different fun venues that are going to come down there. And so these business people are seeing what a revitalized downtown is going to look like, and they think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and because they think that, we've got the private dollars being invested in downtown, and so it is going to happen. Because at the end of the day, and I love quality of life. I think that's really important. But you have to have private investment to make quality of life really genuinely happen. You have to have a partnership with the government and the public side. But you have to have the private investors who say, this is going to happen. This is going to work. We want to make a great community. And I'm so excited to see what will transpire. So we talked just a little bit about Klossman and Eaton. And so as we were looking at that, and to be full disclosure, I wanted to talk about Klossman for a long time because I just have been fascinated by his business and the growth of what he's doing. And then just a pure curiosity of what else does he own, right? Just this okay, I see his name on that. I see him doing that. But I had no idea about the relationship that him and Butch Eaton have. So tell me a little bit about what you found out with Klossman and Eaton.
Yeah, we have a whole separate article that looks at the business relationship between Jim Klossman and Butch Eaton. And basically, these two gentlemen have been in business together as business partners for 40 years. And they started Midwest Health and grew it to a company that has 52 retirement facilities in 4 states, incredibly successful. And then because they must have had spare time or just wanted to do something else, they just started doing all kinds of other business ventures. They would pull in different investor groups. So they work with different groups of people. They have different LLCs and different investment companies that they work with. They're in the restaurant business. For those of you who don't know, they happen to be partial owners in Blue Moose. And if you are addicted to Starbucks like I am, you'll be happy to know that new one that's going to open up over there on basically 29th and Wanamaker is also part of the Klossman-Eaton investment.
It's amazing. It's amazing how many things that they have. And then you think about those 16 buildings in downtown. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the corner of Fairlawn and 29th.
Right. They own that entire corner over there where you've already seen a bunch of buildings knocked down. It's where Herman's Meat Market was, and they're moving. They're going to knock all of that down. And what they would like to do is turn that entire corner, it's like 14 acres, into a multi-use, sort of a mini Legends type of a concept where you might have a grocery store there and you probably have some retail and maybe some office space. All kinds of great plans in the works, kind of dependent upon working with KDOT on trying to get access off of 29th and some other things. But those plans are in the works. And then they just have a multitude of other businesses that aren't even in Topeka. They've got restaurants in Kansas City. They've got restaurants going into Lawrence, all kinds of things that these two gentlemen are involved in. These two men who met basically when they were 20 years old at Washburn
in college,
and decided, hey, let's try this. Let's lease a assisted living or a nursing home in Topeka, and never looked back.
It's pretty amazing. And I think about the relationship you have to have with somebody. I mean, it's a marriage. 40 years is a more than most marriages make it. I mean, it's an incredible amount of time. And what I remember in the article or maybe in sharing with you and chatting with you back and forth was I was kind of taken back by the idea that the reason their relationship works is because they don't always agree. And that helps balance them to have a good decision get made.
Yes, they both, I talked to them separately because you can be a little more candid when you don't have the other person in the room, but both of them had the same kind of view of that relationship. And that was they work really well together because if one of them is really excited about something, the other one may not be so excited about it. And it can be a hold on, let's stop and think about this. Let's really make sure this is what we want to do. And so they've got a system of checks and balances in there. If you've got one that's really big on opening residential space and the other one says, no, I really think we need entertainment space, then sometimes it's a give and take, and maybe we create a multi-purpose type space. And so it is kind of like a marriage in the fact that you have to compromise and you have to work together and you have to sometimes give in and not get your way. But in the end, the relationship and the business is better because of it.
Well, it's definitely proven to be a amazing relationship. And so, if you want to go look at those particular articles, they're in this issue of TK Business Magazine, which you cannot get today, but it should be out by Monday and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is when we'll be dropping it, as long as this weather is nice to us. But for sure, you can find it June 1st. And online at tkmagazine.com. So before I let you go, I also want to talk about CalCan. So CalCan is our cover article. I usually don't disclose that early, but I am, ain't I? And it is an incredible story. It's by Adam Voloch, and the photos are by David Vincent. Both just did an incredible job on this piece. And Lisa actually was the one, you told me about it, and then within a couple of days, another person told me about CalCan, and then I heard it again, and I thought, oh my gosh, we've got to cover this. So because of that, Lisa, tell me a little bit about CalCan.
Well, we discovered CalCan because one of the people who works for my husband was a member of it. And she knew all about it, said, oh, you got to go check this out. So we went over. Basically, it's a greenhouse, and they grow a lot of different kinds of herbs and lettuce. It's phenomenal when you walk in there. It's just, as far as the eye can see, you've got hydroponics, which means no soil. Everything's grown in water. Very technologically advanced, can't say that word, advanced, a lot of machinery. That is not what's so impressive about it, though. And that is the business concept is what's impressive. Yes, their technology is great. What they're trying to do is great. But the business, you have a group of parents with 3 boys with disabilities who wanted to provide an opportunity for their boys to actually be business people. And that's what this business is all about. It's the Cal part of this stands for the 3 boys, Cody, Andre, and Luke. And they built this as a way for the boys to be involved in a family business and to be productive members of the community.
Yeah, it's really an incredible story. And it, they have their food at Hy-Vee and all over the place. I mean, you can buy it in so many locations, and I hope you do. I hope you support this company and let it further, because it's one of those times where, I kind of have a rub when people talk negatively about business and what their intent is. And CalCan is a perfect example of how so often, and it is not just CalCan, but so often businesses do not go into business about the dollar. They go into business because they want to change the world. They go into business because they have something great that they want to share with the world. And the money part is usually a secondary factor. And if you watch it, most business entrepreneurs, the small business owner, if they start getting successful, a lot of times they give that up, give it to somebody else. They go make something else that they want to create. And CalCan's a really, really cool piece, cool article, incredible business.
And CalCan, the more successful it gets and the more that the business is able to make money, the goal is to open more facilities in different areas to bring in even more kids that might have disabilities that can work and be prosperous and be successful and feel like they are a vital part of the community they live in.
Yeah. Lisa, thanks for coming on and getting a chance to talk about TK. And check it out, TK Business Magazine. You can find it online at tkmagazine.com, or go check for stands this week. We are going to be launching it. It for sure will be out on stands by June 1st, maybe a little sooner. Thanks so much for joining me on TK Business Live.
Thanks for joining Tara and her guests on TK Business Live. Join us again next Sunday at 11:30 to hear more from our community business leaders, entrepreneurs, and people making a difference in the landscape of how business is progressively moving forward in Topeka. TK Business Live is brought to you by the members of the Topeka Independent Business Association.